welcome back to Sport on 7. I'm Tom Bushell. If you are on Twitter, you can get me there at Tom Bushell at UAE. Right then, a busy week in local sport. I've been with Sport 360's Chris McHardy to discuss all. Yes, that's right. You find us outside again, battling the summer heat here in Dubai. However, this week we have been clever and put ourselves next to a swimming pool. Chris McHardy from Sport 360 joins me once again to talk about the big stories of the last week in local sport. And it's been a massive weekend of football, hasn't it, with the playoffs for the Pro League starting next week?
It has indeed, Tom, and it's a victory for Abu Dhabi. You could say 2 teams up to the Pro League. Of course, the Pro League being extended to 14 teams next season. Al Dhafra and Al Shab, the 2 teams who have been promoted, and it's misery for Sharjah and Emirates. Sharjah, of course, ending 22 years, the 5-time champions of the UAE Pro League, 22 years in the top flight. That's been ended, and ended by just 1 goal in the end, a 2-1 victory over Emirates on Friday night. That was rendered meaningless after Al Shab beat Al Dhafra 3-2. It's those 2 that go up, and unfortunately it's pain for Sharjah and Emirates.
And international football has been back in action as well for the UAE this week. Madi Ali, of course, the new head coach of the UAE, got off to a losing start against Japan, but on home soil, a much better performance, Chris McHardy.
It was indeed 3-0, Tom, over Kuwait, the defending Gulf Cup champions. A wonderful performance for Madi Ali in his first home game in charge, as you rightly point out as well. And an opening defeat against Japan, it was important they came back, and they did it in some style. He was quick, Madi Ali, after the game to play down expectations. The Gulf Cup, of course, in January in Bahrain, and to be honest, with looking at UAE of late, they would be one of the favourites going into it. But he said, listen, we've still got loads of room for improvement. There's a lot of hard work, to come before we can be viewed upon as being real, genuine title challengers. But certainly an impressive victory. And I think the only negative point in an otherwise brilliant evening for not only Madi Ali but for the team was another poor attendance. The Rashid Stadium, Al Ali's home ground, only just under 900 there. And after the success of the Olympic side, you'd expect a little bit more. And hopefully, as I've gone on record as saying a number of times, this really is a golden generation for UAE football. There's some wonderfully talented players, and I think it's important that the country gets behind them. So hopefully, with the more games and the more performances that they produce, like the 3-0 win over Kuwait, hopefully the fans really buy into it, because it's very, very important we get behind the national team.
The UAE have, of course, won the Gulf Cup before. It was 2007, wasn't it?
It was indeed 2007 under Bruno Metsu, who's now, of course, in charge of Al Wasl. And obviously, with the season getting underway this weekend, it'll be very interesting to see how Metsu does back in club football in the UAE.
And we mentioned earlier how the 2 clubs from Abu Dhabi, Al Shab and Al Dhafra, have gained promotion to the Pro League. Staying with Abu Dhabi, of course, Manchester City in the Premiership back in England. Well, they've unveiled amazing plans for the new Etihad complex, which really is going to be one of sport's greatest training complexes in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, it is indeed, Tom. And actually, Patrick Vieira, who's now the football development officer at Manchester City, he called it exactly that. It will be, once it is complete, looking at 2014-15, I believe, he called it probably the greatest facility in all of sport. Basically what it is for the listeners and viewers, it's an 80-acre training facility. Now there's big plans indeed. I think it's 16.5 pitches, which I know will sound very weird, but the half pitch for goalkeeping, specific goalkeeping training. There's also going to be a 7,000 capacity stadium for youth football, which is wonderful. And not only that, but they're going to have the best medical facilities and a number of other things, an academy as well for the youth players. And really, I think Ferran Soriano, who of course was the Barcelona vice president, he's now chief executive at City, and he called it, and I quote, the most important day in Manchester City's future. They've appointed, I think it's BAM Construction, to go ahead with the build of this complex, and it really will pale everything else in sports, as Patrick Vieira said, into insignificance. It's a wonderful investment. Etihad, of course, involved as well, and I'm sure it will be, for the future anyway, nurturing talent for the years to come.
7,000 capacity ground there for the youth academy, and when you think that only 900 people go and watch the UAE national side, it puts it all in perspective, doesn't it?
It does indeed. I mean, as I said earlier, 900 for a team who's impressed. I mean, they got all the plaudits after the Olympics. I know a lot of the British press were very impressed with the way UAE played, and it's very disappointing. Yes, we've talked about it before, that the heat, etc., is a factor, but there is a lot of skilled players in there. I've mentioned his name before, Omar Abdul Rahman, Amar Abdul Rahman. There's some wonderful talent in the UAE, and it's important that we do get behind it.
Well, one ground that can of course, create a good atmosphere is the Sabile Stadium where Al Wassel play, and they're hoping for a big season ahead. New manager, of course, Bruno Metsu, so that will be exciting. Lucas Neal from Al Jazeera has joined them for the season as well in defence, and a new signing up front as well.
Yes, of course, Tom. Emilio Alfaro is the name in everyone's lips, and a Lazio striker, a Uruguayan as well. He's joining on a one-year loan deal with a view to a permanent deal. He's 24 years of age. He comes with good pedigree, signed by Lazio, of course, the Serie A giants, in January, €3 million. Hasn't quite worked out for him at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome. 8 games, no goals, but he's the physical, imposing striker that I think Al Wassel were looking for. Bruno Metsu's made no secret of the fact he was looking for a striker. Emmanuel Clotti, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the Ghanaian, was one player they had targeted. They had also targeted Afonso Alves, the ex-Middlesbrough striker, but it's Emiliano Alfaro is the one they're going for. He was due to arrive in Dubai on Friday, and all the signs point to him being the new man to lead Wassel's title challenge this season.
There we go then. They are the big stories from the last week here. Locally in the UAE, it's about 40 degrees outside at the moment, so we're going to jump in the pool, and we'll see you again next week. MotoGP to begin with, and Jorge Lorenzo took a huge step towards regaining the MotoGP title as he won the San Marino Grand Prix, and rival Dani Pedrosa crashed out. Pedrosa endured a torrid start and was then taken out by Hector Barbera halfway through lap 1. That left the way clear for Lorenzo to cruise to victory and extend his championship lead from 13 to 38 points. There are the latest MotoGP standings. There you can see Lorenzo pulling away from Pedrosa. Australian Casey Stoner back in third. Rugby Union now in England, and in the Aviva Premiership, the Harlequins returned to the top of the Premiership table as the champions kept up their 100% start to the season as they beat Sale 37-14. Meanwhile, London Welsh secured their first ever victory in the Premiership with a gutsy display against Exeter. So the Quins, 2 points clear at the top. London Irish still looking for that first point. The pool was very refreshing, just to let you know. There we go then, a huge week of sport, and the next 7 days will no doubt be just as busy. The T20 World Cup gets underway. The Singapore F1 is in action, and the Pro League kicks off as well. And locally, as well as the Pro League, the MENA Tour starts as well in golf. That starts at Dubai Creek next week, so looking forward to that. I'll see you next week on Sport on 7. I'm Tom Bushell. Goodbye.